Because talking about attracting the top talent segues into talking about our behind the keyboard segment, which is today about the top talent getting recruited to the professional ranks. All the top talent is obviously um, heads to Indianapolis before every draft for the dog and pony show that is the NFL Combine. You've covered it, and I'm just kind of curious. We can all watch it on NFL Network and see the dash times and the shuttle drills and all that sort of stuff. Um, what is that actually like to cover on location?
Weird. Weird is what I would say. Number one, I don't think a lot of fans probably realize, but the reporters can't go into the stadium and watch the drills. The TV crews can, or some of the TV crews, but like I certainly didn't have access. I even tried to go up one time, and I just because I'd never been in Lucas Oil Stadium, and I just wanted to check it out, and it was when the combine stuff was going on, and I wasn't allowed to. So like the average writer that goes there can't go in and watch the drills. Um, Really, what the combine is, you know, when I was there, it was a little different where I was in a unique position to actually get something out of it from a content standpoint because Nesson's formula was or model was so high volume driven and like there was a way to get a story out of just about everything. So like I went there and I squeezed like 40 something stories out of it. I remember going to talk to all the prospects come out in positional groups and I remember going over into the far corner of the room and seeing Puka Nakua, who I'd never heard of, but I just was trying to go up to every prospect and ask, "Have you met with the Patriots?" Which is a completely useless factoid. Like it doesn't matter that they've met or haven't met with the team, but you do it anyway. It's like this weird thing we all agree is dumb, but we do it anyway for the sake of content. But I remember asking Puka Nakua, and he was like, "Yeah, I met with him at the Senior Bowl. Then I met with him afterward. I met with him here." And he was like, sure, talking like someone who thought he was going to go there. Said he really loves playing in the cold and he would love playing up there. So obviously the Patriots blew it on that one. But um, yeah, like I was able to actually get a lot out of it because I just asked really simple questions that led to short stories that trafficked well. But for people that aren't doing that, and most people aren't doing that, you really don't do anything. You go into this room every day, and either the GMs come out, or the head coaches, or all the prospects, and most of them don't say anything. You're not getting any valuable information. Um, again, it doesn't matter that they met with the team, and most people realize that. So the actual like that part of it is completely useless for the most part. The true value of the combine and the real reason why everybody goes is to get absolutely shit faced with the top people in the NFL. Like the whole point is you go to Indianapolis for the week and you go the main bar is in the bottom of this JW Marriott called High Velocity, and you're just getting completely bombed with head coaches, general managers. You know, I'm not going to name names. Top NFL insiders, agents, all this stuff. Like you're at the bar, and you've got Schefter to your right. You've got Joe Judge to your left. You've got this agent over here, and it's bizarre. It's you're in any and the weird thing is too, there's no security. Like an average person could walk off the street and walk into that bar and just join in. And for some reason that doesn't happen. I don't know why. Um, but yeah, you see a lot of weird stuff there. You see a lot of people who you're used to seeing in very professional context get pretty wasted. I remember waiting for an Uber outside. I'm not going to name the head coach who it was, but there was an NFL head coach waiting for an Uber with two ladies under his arm and a cigarette in his mouth, completely bombed. And I'm like, holy crap! Like it's a bizarre thing. And yeah, the whole idea is to get drinks and buy someone a drink and see who will say something to you once they let loose a little bit. Like that's the whole point. And stay up till 3 a.m. and do it all the next day. Um, like that's all it is. That's the most benefit that you get out of it, and that's where you get sourced information if you're going to get any of it.
How much actual draft decision making is changed there? Do you think?
Definitely less and less, especially now. And that's the other thing is like from a content perspective, it's become even less useful because a lot of these guys aren't actually participating. Like the quarterbacks aren't throwing; they just do the pro day, and these teams are doing so much homework on these guys throughout the college season. And then they go check them out at the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl, or they go to their pro days where a lot of teams prefer the pro days. Really, the only thing that really changes, or the biggest benefit, is the interviews. But again, like a lot of them have already interviewed these guys at the Senior Bowl and stuff. So a lot of times this is the second or third interview, like I said with Puka Nakua. Um, so yeah, like if a guy has a great interview, yeah, that can help his draft stock with a team. If he bombs it, that can obviously hurt it. But that's really it. That and little specific situations like, is Ted McMillan gonna run lower than a 4.5, and what does that do to his draft stock? What are Will Campbell's? What's his arm length? Just those specific scenarios. The rest of it, I think most teams they've done their homework. They're planning to go to the pro days, and really, this is for them also about schmoozing and planning trade seeds with other head coaches and general managers, talking to agents about the internal free agents or the external free agents coming up. It's as much about that for them as it is for the reporters. I think the on-field work is kind of secondary.
Right. So, I've never had the pleasure or the intoxication of covering the combine.
Indianapolis is super underrated.
Yeah, I've heard that, especially from a football perspective. I hear it has a nice complex.
It's all densely packed downtown, and then you got the Speedway that's not too far away, and the Pacers arena is right there in the downtown. It's just like a very dense area of good restaurants, good bars, the football field, the basketball arena, and then you have the NCAA headquarters that are right there nearby in the museum. Very walkable city. So it's not like amazing. I'm not going to say like you got to go to Indy, but like, it's better than some other cities for sure.
It's a good Chamber of Commerce speech for mayor of Indianapolis. What I did do though, I think just maybe a bit longer than you did was cover high school athletics. And so I can kind of offer I similar to the combine. I think that the element of high school athletes being scouted and recruited is also different from what a lot of people assume it is. I would cover athletes who, I would write that they're, multiple scouts at games or multiple college coaches. And I think a lot of people had this idea, like, if you see in movies with players getting scouted, this like people lining, their the teams, they've got their guns out. They've got it. It's all decked out. And there was once player who was getting recruited, and a TV crew came, a news crew came, and they were like, "Well, where are all the scouts? I thought there'd be scouts." And I'm like, "Yeah, they are. It's like those two guys over there in Windbreakers. Like they're not." I think like that movie, The Trouble with the Curve. Have you ever seen that Clint Eastwood movie? Not a great movie.
Yeah.
Not a great movie, but I thought that it did the best job of any movie I've seen of capturing the fact that like people who are going around, scouting out high school athletes, they're not necessarily what you think of as like sports executives. These are guys in bomber jackets, and a lot of them are they probably have like iPads and stuff now, but as recently as just like 10 years ago, they were still using like clipboards and stuff because they were old school. The other thing that I always found interesting was so when you cover high school athletes in an area day to day, and it only kind of works if you cover a small or like a mid-size region. I would not infrequently talk to college coaches on the phone. And it was generally for, lower level college, junior colleges, that sort of thing. And I did really find it interesting because the number one thing that those folks are usually looking to find out from a neutral observer is not athletic stuff. It's like makeup things, because if you're a junior college coach, you're generally looking at someone who like has some skills but has some grade concerns, off the field concerns, whatever it might be, and the coach is gonna say what's best for the player. And if you talk to the player and their family, They're going to say what they want you to hear. But it would always be interesting, and it's funny because you know you also have like the kid, so you want the kid to get the best opportunity. So it's like a balancing act between saying, okay, what can I say that will help this kid potentially get an opportunity to go to a D2 school, an NAIA school, and get an opportunity and education he won't otherwise have, but also being honest with this coach. And that's something I honestly think about from time to time, because that job that I had, 20 years ago, does not exist as much anymore because there's fewer and fewer, impartial regional news outlets. And I just kind of wonder, A, about whether those students are getting opportunities, and B, whether a lot of those schools and coaches end up kind of wasting their time now because they don't get that neutral insight before they bring a kid in, and they realize like, oh, actually his high school coach, when he said, oh, I think he can work through his problems, was not giving us the full story.
Yeah, that's a good point. And on your point about the like scouting at high schools and stuff, it is true that like it's not like as formal of a thing as you'd think it'd be. Like I remember I grew up in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and there's a school there, Brewster Academy, which is uh, generally one of like the top 5 high school or prep school basketball programs in the country every year, and that's the case. I think they're number 2 in the polls right now this year. And I remember like 10 years ago when I would either go to the games or I did work for the school like in some capacity. You would just be there and you'd see like Bill Self. I remember just sitting over in the corner by himself. It wasn't like there was a security detail around him. It wasn't like people were glued to him. He was just kind of hanging out in a windbreaker. It didn't even have Kansas on the windbreaker. He was just watching. And then he got up and he left. And I remember I went to the one of the restaurants in town right after just to get food, and he was there too, like by himself, just eating. And then he went off into the night, right? And like I remember seeing Coach Calipari in the same kind of context. Um, and it was always surprising to me. Like you'd think it'd be a big production or song and dance when people of those magnitude are coming to the school to watch the players, and in many cases, it's really not.
I think it's also interesting how little of a player those guys also have to watch a lot of times to make a determination. And I know that that can sound bad, be like, oh, Bill Self only watched 5 minutes of action. How can Bill Self has been right more often than not. And I would always think that was interesting because you could have it's a big showcase, and Calipari shows up for a few minutes of one game to see a player, and then he goes somewhere else, then he comes back and watches a few more minutes. And a lot of the bulk of that kind of scouting job is done by their assistants. But it's also something like I don't know what they see. I'm not the basketball mind that any of those guys are, but I think it's very interesting to see how they can determine just on a couple plays about like whether this guy's got it, both from a talent standpoint and from like a makeup standpoint. I'm assuming.
Well, what's interesting thing is I think that's unique to sports like basketball, where it doesn't take very long to know, right? But like baseball, for instance, I think is something that maybe is more of a larger sample size. And I just have one example where I remember when I was younger, I used to go to Portland Sea Dogs games a lot, and with my uncle. And I remember like one summer we went to see, I don't know, maybe even like upwards of like 10 of them. And it was when Hanley Ramirez was there. And he was always bad, or he wasn't bad, but like we would go. I don't like he's like never was hitting home runs. He was striking out a lot. He wasn't doing like I never left super impressed by Hanley Ramirez, even though, I mean, what was I, like 14, 15? And my uncle is a big baseball guy. And he actually, I mean, he's friends with former MLB umpires. He befriends a lot of the scouts that go to these minors games because he goes to like every Fisher Cats game. And one of the games, we were sitting next to a scout, I believe. And my uncle asked him, like, what's so great about Hanley Ramirez? Like, I've come here, like, I've seen him like 10 or 15 times and I've never seen anything. And he was like, well, I've seen him upwards of like 120 times. He's like, I've been sent to watch this kid play like almost like a full season's worth of baseball games. And if you watch him as much as I have, then you'd understand. you know. And maybe I think with baseball prospects, maybe you got to watch them for longer periods of time, maybe than basketball, where you watch for 1 second, you're like, that guy's good, like he's got it.
We
Have I
should
ever told you my? Have I ever told? I might have even done it in a previous episode. My memory stinks. Have I ever
let,
told you my Donovan Mitchell story?
yeah, that's fine. I was gonna say let's hold Portland Sea Dogs for future things because I have a couple of Portland Sea Dogs stories. I actually
I love Sea Dog
covered
stories.
them that summer a little bit at the Portland Press Herald. So no, what's your Donovan Mitchell story?
Um, as I was saying um when I was working at Brewster Academy, I was doing like weird stuff. Like it was like substitute teaching and bus driving. And the bus driving was like, yes, driving the bus like to and from the airport sometimes, but sometimes it was like driving my Corolla to like bring someone somewhere. And one time, and this was back like 2013 or so, they sent me to Connecticut to pick up some kid that was going to be on the basketball team. So I drove to Canterbury, which was like a 4 something hour drive in my little Corolla, picked up Donovan Mitchell, who obviously, I think he was a sophomore at the time, had no idea who he was. And he just sat in my passenger seat. And I drove all the way from Canterbury School in Connecticut back to Wolfboro with Donovan Mitchell, talked to him the whole time. He was super cool. He said that, I remember him saying like he didn't even like basketball. He wanted his dream was to be a New York Mets shortstop because I think his dad either played baseball or whatever. And he said that he was playing baseball at Canterbury School, and then like the summer before his sophomore year, a coach convinced him to try basketball, and they had him in a scrimmage in a game against the varsity, which was all like seniors, and he said he put up like 50 something points. So the coach said that he should pursue basketball, not baseball. And then somehow Brewster got word of it and then brought him over there. And then, yeah, he was in a backcourt with Devontae Graham. I think Thomas Robinson and Mitch McGary were also on that team. They went like 42-0. And Donovan Mitchell was ridiculous in high school at Brewster. I mean, it was as you can imagine. But yeah, it's a crazy thing looking back on it. Like he just sat in my Corolla for 4 hours, just shooting the breeze about nothing with some weird white dude from New Hampshire.
That's great. Yeah, that's another topic we should have for behind the keyboard is just how um, the high schools, the elite high schools, and just if you're good, they find you. Um, but yeah, that's something
Yeah,
we
they didn't
can.
send a limo for Donovan Mitchell. They
Yeah.
sent a dude in his Corolla.
Um,